Hey everybody, Karyn Bryant for MMA H.E.A.T. I'm speaking with Drew Dober, who is taking on Beneil Dariush at UFC Wichita. And it's funny because I started the same conversation. I talked to Beneil yesterday. We were both talking about how cold it was going to be there. He wasn't there yet, but you're actually there and you're telling me it kind of sucks, yeah?
Yeah, it's not gonna. I feel bad for him. He's coming in from California, and that weather looks nice. And he's coming into Kansas. Like,
Yeah.
at least it wasn't a huge jump from Denver.
Yeah, no, both of us are coming in from LA, and I just know I'm a wuss with this. But anyway, it doesn't matter how cold it is outside because you're going to be heating it up in the octagon. I couldn't help it. That's a cheesy line, but what am I going to do? But listen, this is actually a really good matchup. Both of you are dynamic fighters. What did you think when you were first offered Beneil, and why'd you accept a fight with him?
Oh, I was super excited. I've been a fan of Beneil's in previous UFC fights, and I really admired his skill set and everything he brings to the table. So then when they're offered me, just being able to test my skill set against this such a dangerous opponent just excites me. And so I just came in with a little bit of pep into the gym and a little bit more enthusiasm in my training.
All right, well, I'm not going to give any secrets away, but he believes he has an advantage when it comes to grappling and jiu-jitsu. So how do you see that?
I think on paper that makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't stop getting better. If he's watching my past fights and trying to game plan that, he's already a little too late. I'm already a better fighter than I was last time. And so I'm coming in with a more an improved version of myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are you've won 5 out of your last 6 fights, so you're definitely coming in on more of a hot streak than Beneil, as he's had. The last few fights of his have been a little spotty. He's been back on the winning track, but he had kind of a rough patch there. Is there anything specific that you attribute your hot streak to these days?
Just the plan set together by Team Elevation in Denver, Colorado. I'm surrounded by just fantastic people, as coaches, teammates, and everything else. It's I admit ignorance when it came to doing things by myself. I put faith in other people, and the plan's been working out fantastically. And so I created a momentum, and I'm going to continue it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, coachability is something that we hear coaches talk about when they have a student that is very coachable. So what do you think it is about your mindset? You're just more open-minded, because a lot of people go into a gym and they already have a lot of ego. You have reason to have a pretty decent ego.
I mean, I think as a fighter, you get humbled quite a bit, in and out of the gym. But it's just admitting the fact that, like, I might have just exhausted my resources and my knowledge. And so I just have a lot of trust in the guys that are watching my camp. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, well, we're having a storm here, so maybe it was us on our end. But yeah, you were saying you have faith in the people that you train with.
Yeah, so all it is just admitting ignorance and doing everything by yourself, and also acknowledging the fact that a third-person perspective, and no matter where you're at, is beneficial. So it's having to look at my training camp and look into the ways I can improve, and is helping me mentally, physically, spiritually, just all over the world.
Yeah, well, it's a great team at Elevation. I don't know who you've mainly been training with, but I know Neil Magny has always been a part of that gym, right?
Yeah. Neil Magny is super close to me, and he's my accountability buddy. I usually bounce emotions off him quite a bit in my camp.
Nice. He seems like a very stable guy. I mean, like, having gone through the military all those years, everything that he's accomplished, like, Neil always seems like a solid stand-up dude.
Yeah, he's the nicest guy in the world, I think. Like, he makes other nice people, like, look bad. Like, the dude is just over the top. I think it'd be just exhausting to be that, like, good all the time.
That's actually really funny. That's kind of funny, but you know what, Drew? Like, you're not a bad guy either. Like, it's kind of funny to, I was talking to your management about it, and they're like, yeah, Drew's just a really good guy, and he hasn't really had a lot of, like, management help before, or agents. Like, he's just a really good guy who really likes to fight. Is that a fair assessment of you?
I think so. I try to be my best at being the best fighter I possibly can be and the best person I possibly can be. And I think that's why Neil and I get along so well. It's just, just proving to everyone else that you don't have to be an asshole to be successful in the sport. It's like, you can be a true martial artist, compete at your very best, and still be a good person.
Well, absolutely. And the funny thing about this matchup is Beneil has been a friend of ours for years, and I've always called him one of the nicest guys in the sport. So it's not surprising to me that neither of you has had a bad word to say about the other guy. It's all respect. So you're not a person, though, that needs to have a little a little something to egg you on in the octagon? You know, like some people do fight better if they're a little bit angry. Some people do fight better if they, you know, sort of mentally create a problem or an issue with that other person. But you don't need that, huh?
I mean, I could be desensitized to the idea of like fighting somebody else because I've been doing this for so long, but I draw my motivation competing with myself. Like I always want to be a better version of myself every time I step in the cage, every time I wake up in the morning. And so the person standing across from me is just kind of like a default person with 2 arms, 2 legs, and 2 eyeballs, right? But what motivates me is just trying to be a better martial artist, better fighter, and better person, and better entertainer every time I enter the cage.
Well, it is interesting for me, you know, if I were to tell somebody, oh yeah, Drew Dober, you got to watch him fight. Do you have fights in your mind, in your career that you think are the ones that most represent you as a martial artist, where your skill set was on display the best, or just things came together? If I were to tell somebody, you got to watch this, this, and this, or a couple fights of yours, which ones would you say?
Oh, there's so many. I think as a fighter, we cherish every single fight like a little child of ours, like a little story. But I've had a knockout in UFC Cleveland that showcased a great showcase. I had a wrestling clinic that I put on in UFC Las Vegas, and then I've had fights where it didn't go so well, but also I just showed my heart and my determination. I had a gritty 15 rounds with Hein in Germany. Yeah. That was just fantastic. So I just think every fight I show a different aspect of myself.
And you and Nick have a special relationship anyway, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Married to his sister, right?
I was married to his sister, so we got divorced like 2 years ago.
Oh no, I didn't hear that part. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all right. I mean, it happens. Like you live passionately, you go after something, and then if things don't work out, they just don't work out.
It happens. Well, we'll just shut the door on that part of the conversation. But I do think that's kind of cool that you guys had that relationship, and I would imagine you guys are still cool with each other. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. He was my brother-in-law. He's a really good friend of mine, and we have a lot in common as far as competing goes.
Right. And I know Nick too. He's a real good guy. You know, it's funny because you just talked about all these examples of you being a great martial artist and things coming together for you, but you were also on the receiving end of that really crappy call with the submission. So how infuriating was that? I mean, I know it was overruled and became a no contest and stuff, but in the moment and at the time, like, how did you even process? Because, obviously the other day with Robbie Lawler, there was, some take, oh, was he really out? And it's a common thing, but yours was so glaring that everybody just kind of lost their mind.
I mean, I think I was just absolutely confused. Like, I couldn't settle on just one emotion just because I had no idea what was going on. Right. And, I just try to, in those situations where you want to lose your temper, I was like, all right, I need to, understand what just happened. And, when you don't do anything wrong, then you just know, I'm not at fault. There shouldn't be anything that, I should be upset about. We'll figure this out in, a responsible and mature fashion.
Right. And so it was Leandro Santos, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Right. Well, and the thing that was weird too, because didn't he start celebrating?
Yeah, that was the most interesting part, was that his celebration, his robotic salsa that he did at the end of the fight. I think that was the most disappointing part, was just I felt there was a lot of confusion, but he didn't seem confused. And I was like, oh, that's unfortunate.
Right. Because you didn't win. Well, I'm glad it got overturned for you. You talk about being an entertainer and everything, and we do know that, nice guys don't always finish first, right? So a lot of time the people who are talking crap and inventing storylines or whatever, inventing beefs, or maybe they have real ones, are getting the headlines, they're getting title shots, they're getting a lot of movement, they're getting a lot of activity. So how do you kind of process, well, I would like to be more successful and I want to get people's attention, but I don't want to play that part of the game. So what do you do?
So for me, it's something a lot of fighters got to think about. And I think being authentic and genuine is key. You can be loud but also be yourself. You see those fighters like Conor McGregor, where I feel like that's truly him. But then you see other fighters that they open their mouth and you're like, what script are you reading? What are you doing? This doesn't seem, and when it sounds corny or unnatural, it's kind of cringy. And so for me, I gotta look at myself. Who am I? How do I want to represent myself? And I just gotta be loud about it. And I don't talk trash. I don't, that's just not who I am. So I have so many other ways that I can, get people interested in my fights. One of
Well,
which,
I agree with you on the Conor thing. Having interviewed him a number of times, the guy that I get on camera is the same guy off camera. You know what I mean? That's him. Like I don't think he's creating a personality. But the thing is you can't be that nice, right? So there's got to be a dark side to Drew Dober. There's got to be something on the DVR, something on the playlist. Somewhere there's a skeleton somewhere in the closet where there's like, wait a minute, I didn't know Drew was going to be into XYZ. So what could that possibly be?
Bringing out the skeletons in an interview. I mean, I don't know. I guess if we're talking things that people don't know, it's like a huge nerd. But I guess when it comes to fighting, how I perform and the things that I do in the cage also kind of like shock myself. I was like, oh man, that's in me. Like, so like just when I put people on a canvas and asleep, and I was like, oh wow, I'm capable of that. Yeah. So like. Usually what it is like I have fun, I entertain, I get in the cage, and then the mind just shuts off, and then I just perform the way I perform. I definitely have like a killer instinct. Like I smell blood and I get after it. So what parts of me that comes from, I have no idea. But it's very theatrical and entertaining to watch, though.
For sure. Well, it's funny because I've played sports all my life, and I'm even I'm on a tennis team now and stuff. But and I've trained, but obviously I've never gotten to knock somebody out. And I swear to you, that's the one thing I talk to like Bisping about, Rashad about all the time. I'm like, but what does it feel like? You know what I mean? Because I feel like that might be it. Like that whole sense of like, holy crap, I actually did that. And like that primal power, I don't know. I feel like that would be, like you said, it's sort of like revolutionary and surprising to your own self.
Yeah, it's like scoring points or outscoring somebody in a basketball game does not simulate the same amount of glory as putting someone away. It's like you push a button and then they go to sleep and like you're absolutely victorious. I mean, that's why I feel like it's super hard for fighters to retire, because there's nothing in this world that can simulate that amount of glory. Right. And so I'm in the prime right now, and I'm going to try to get as many as I possibly can before I have to retire. Nice.
Well, I'm back up a little bit. You say you're a nerd. And see, I've said that about myself too. Certain things like what qualifies you as a nerd? What's the nerdiest habit or like thing that you like?
Oh God! Like if I'm gonna dig deep, like I'm the type of guy that does like the paper and dice Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, like I did that. And like online. Yeah, incredibly. Like majority of my pro career is spent in Barnes and Nobles, just picking up random books and like Barnes and Nobles was my home away from home. So people were like, "Oh my gosh, like what is Drew outside? What does Drew do outside the gym?" It's like I'm usually at Barnes and Nobles drinking coffee and enjoying books and just nerding out on some fantasy novel.
Nice. All right, so the D&D now for Drew Dober stands for something totally different now. I'm gonna have fun with that. But it's funny because I too am like nerd. Like watch a lot of Star Trek. I read a lot of books too, you know what I mean? It's funny because I even posted something on Instagram the other day, like I was reading a book. I'm like, y'all read or nah? You know what I mean? Because I just know some people just don't. So I get that. And I'm sure that's a nice balance to, the violence inside, having that release of some fantasy stuff. So are you a Game of Thrones person? I actually don't watch that, but are you a Game of Thrones person?
I'm absolutely thoroughly excited this year's Game of Thrones season. I literally, my fight with Josh Berkman, the entire camp was just playing catch up on the Game of Thrones. And I just watch it religiously. Right. And absolutely excited.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, people talk about it. I remember watching the beginning of it and I was like, it wasn't for me. But people love it so much, I might have to revisit it. I don't know.
I highly suggest it. I mean, nice. If you're into fantasy, like in the role playing or like the novels, it's enthralling.
It's awesome. Cool. Well, listen, it is just a few days away from your fight here, so you're already in Wichita. How close are you on your weight? Are you there already? You getting close?
I'm getting close. I feel like I'm notable for having like extreme weight cuts, with my California Athletic Commission stuff. But this camp actually a couple pounds ahead of schedule, and I'm feeling fantastic. I have a lot of energy, and then of course I work with a Lockhart and Lathe team for nutritionists, and their plan is just brilliant. And so I'm just here, just kind of following their direction, getting my last tune-ups in the gym, and just waiting for Saturday.
Nice. And lastly, before I let you get out of here, obviously we know there's going to be a lightweight title fight coming up. I'm just curious what your take is on that, on Khabib being out for now and, Max and Dustin fighting. Like, what do you take away from all that?
I think it's a cluster currently. I think you can't just have one fight to determine the best right now. So like the Poirier and Holloway fight is fantastic, but I mean I still think Tony Ferguson and Khabib, and then what Connor's going to be doing. It's like it's kind of like a little cork at the end of the division. It's like you never know who's going to end up on top, but there's multiple fights that need to happen for us to figure out the number one.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little muddy, but would you be a guy? We were just talking about your weight cut. I'm imagining you would, if they had that new weight class between 55 and 70. Is that something you'd be interested in?
I'd be all over the 165-pound weight class. Unfortunately, I feel like I'm too small for 70, but too big for 55. And so I was like, man, I would fight far more often if I didn't have to cut so much weight.
Yep. Yeah, no, I would think you'd be the poster boy for it. Like, yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, awesome. I'm excited to see your fight. I believe you guys are the second fight, I think, on the main card. I think something like that.
I believe so.
Awesome. Do you have a lot of family coming from Denver down to Wichita or no?
Surprising enough, yes, I got a ton of family coming down watching it. I felt bad, bringing everyone to Wichita. No offense to Wichita, but I mean, I love fighting in fantastic cities like Las Vegas and California, but right. I have a lot of support here in the Midwest, so I absolutely love it.
Nice. Very nice. And I feel the same way. Apologies to Wichita because I've been kind of complaining about it a little bit, and I haven't even been there yet. And I imagine it's going to be a great night. I just don't know about Wichita.
Yeah, I'm about to go investigate Wichita myself and see if I can find life outside of this hotel.
I've heard there's not a lot to do.
Guess we're gonna find out, but I gotta watch my P's and Q's anyways.
There you go.
I guess Midwest is known for drinking and eating, and I can't do either right now.
Right. All right, well, get a good book. You got a good book. You cuddle up in the hotel room there. Listen, Drew, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today, and I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.